I was born a carnivore. Meat was the first thing I reached out for when I was weaned off milk. As I grew older, I would always go for the meat first. If still hungry, I would then eat the rice, but only if it was drenched in beef or chicken stock. I didn't like bread at all. I wasn't into vegetables, nor was I into candy or sweets. At the parties and weddings where food was plentiful, I would sneakily eat nothing but meat. I got the heat for it so many times. Meat was expensive back then, and it was disrespectful to others to eat it all. My preference was lamb and beef. I was lean, shredded, and athletic as a kid. I was an avid swimmer. The 90s and discovering the idea of an all-meat diet. In my teenage years in the mid-90s, when I could access the internet using dial-up, I started researching if it's normal to love meat so much, and if we can survive on meat alone. Yes, I was way ahead of my time. There was no such a thing as a carnivore diet back then. Instead of YouTube, there were blogs. Although I wasn't speaking it, I could easily understand, read, and write in English. One day I came across a blog, I think it was probably in 1997. It was the stories of an old man in the US, and he was sharing his childhood experiences happening in the 1940s. When a Native American chief, who he was referring to as an Indian back then, was living with them and helping in the farm, since all the other members of his tribe had been perished in the early 1900s because of wars, famine, and disease. However, although the Native American chief was very old, in 1940s, probably 95 years old, he was very healthy and strong, with perfect teeth, and he was muscular and shredded. What was his diet? He only ate buffalo meat. It is technically bison, but the narrator referred to it as buffalo, as it was commonly called back then. He concluded, based on his observation, that humans do not need modern foods or plants to be perfectly healthy, strong, and live long. That was it. It confirmed what I already knew instinctively. What my body was telling me since birth was correct. I wasn't wrong. While everyone, including my siblings, were laughing at me and calling me a savage beast, a prehistoric Neanderthal, although they were overweight. But there was a big problem. In most third world countries, red meat was and still is prohibitively expensive. It is not subsidized as bread is, and it is not considered a staple. More proof in the late 90s. Another incident happened in the late 1990s. A family that had left their war-torn country were working for us, helping with the gardening. One day when the wife was pregnant, we called the midwife to examine her. The midwife was astonished because, as she described, she had never seen such a shredded, muscular woman in decades of her practice. Since we knew that the pregnant lady wasn't working out or had any idea even what working out was and would just do some cleaning, gardening, and pruning, my mom asked her what she ate. Her response was this: "We were sheep and cattle herders back in my country before the war. I love red meat and I still mostly eat lamb and beef. If we can't afford it, I'll eat chicken." When my mom shared the story to me, I wasn't surprised. It again confirmed my belief. Fast forward to 30 years later, the carnivore diet goes mainstream. Almost 30 years passed, and this time, this carnivore diet was being popularized on YouTube, especially after the first Joe Rogan's interview with Jordan Peterson, and subsequently his daughter Michaela. As I watched them, I said to myself, I knew it 30 years ago. Just didn't have the courage to speak out. Like a coward, I had surrendered to everyone else's opinions and what the TV talk shows such as the doctors had to say. But too late, I had become addicted to carbohydrates and ended up shaped like a potato. Now my keto experience. If you have watched my weight loss transformation video, link above, you already know that last year, 2024, I was initially at 32% body fat. I was able to reach to 15% body fat in about 4 months by going on keto combined with intermittent fasting 1 meal a day. However, for more than a month, my weight loss had stalled completely. I wanted faster results to get more motivation, and I wanted to give it my best as long as it was healthy. And so my carnivore journey began. I decided to give the carnivore diet another try after 30 years and see the results for myself. This time in a developed country, red meat and chicken were so cheap, even cheaper than bread. Can you believe it? The complete opposite of where I was coming from. So the price wasn't an issue. Since my body was already fully fat adapted and in ketosis, it was a very smooth transition. For everyone else wanting to give it a try, I suggest the same. To first start with regular keto, then transition to carnivore. My carnivore diet results. After starting the carnivore diet, in 3 months I went from 15% to 10% body fat and finally achieved my long-term dream. And I achieved it with minimal exercise, which were mostly walking and some abs exercises. The reason I didn't work out was my knee and shoulder pain. While being on the carnivore diet, my knee pain was completely healed and my shoulder pain was 90% gone. Moreover, I had kept most of the muscles without working out. My conclusion was that the carnivore diet had a major factor in both. I also looked younger and had higher testosterone. But before sharing the rest of my journey, why I quit carnivore and how I got to 8% body fat 12 months after the start of the weight loss journey, I want to break down the carnivore diet for you. By the way, thank you for the subscriptions and all the support. I started this channel 6 weeks ago and we are already reaching 1,000 subscribers. The growth of the channel motivates me to make more and continuously better videos. Now, what is the carnivore diet? In the previous video, I explained the keto diet and shared my whole experience with it. The carnivore diet has many similarities with keto, and it is in fact technically ketogenic, but the main difference is that it is more restrictive and eliminates more food. It is practically a zero-carb diet consisting solely of animal-based foods. What you eat: red meat such as beef, lamb, pork, game meat, poultry such as chicken, turkey, etc., fish and seafood, eggs, animal fats such as beef tallow, lard, duck fat, etc., organ meats such as liver, kidney, heart, etc., dairy, but only butter and ghee. What you don't eat: plant-based foods including vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and plant oils. Dairy is limited. It usually does not include milk, yogurt, and cheese, but butter is okay. My experience with the carnivore diet in detail and what I ate. In the 3 months that I did it, all the inflammation was gone. My hormones, especially testosterone, were the highest. I could go back to exercise. I had the most mental and physical energy. I achieved my goal weight and I had the best health in a long time. What I ate was mostly lamb, which is my favorite, and then beef and chicken. I didn't want to increase my spending, so I went for cheaper cuts of meat such as leg of lamb, beef eye round, and brisket. For the most part, I avoided ground or minced beef because the quality was not as good and the premium quality was not cheap. Therefore, I ground them myself. About organ meats. On the keto diet, I did not include them, but the carnivore diet pushed me to include them. Back in my country, organ meats were considered delicacies and were expensive. Here in the developed world, they are cheaper, but the quality is not as good. For example, lamb kidneys used to be my absolute favorite, but here their taste is off-putting, and I don't know why. However, I included lamb hearts and liver in my diet. The taste was not as good as the ones I used to have back home, but I could tolerate. At first I included eggs in my diet, but as the egg prices rose higher, I realized that they are a waste of money since eggs are 75% water. And for the same or even cheaper price, pound for pound, I can get the end product of eggs, aka a whole chicken. I bought whole chickens and cut them myself. The carcasses were used for soup since they're full of collagen. I even ate the bone marrows. Since fish is expensive, I very sporadically bought fish. For the fat, I did not need to buy extra fat, since the meat that I was buying had more than enough already. In the beginning, I drank apple cider vinegar after the meal to help with the digestion. But over time, my stomach acid got stronger and I didn't need the vinegar anymore. Here is why I limited eating ground or minced meat. I think I'm the first one to talk about this. I once watched a documentary that was showing the results of studies on unearthed skeletons of prehistoric humans, scientifically called paleoanthropology and bioarchaeology. It showed that early humans before agriculture, as well as current tribes eating primarily meat, have had perfect teeth and chiseled jawlines with strong facial features. According to the study, the reason was chewing tough cuts of meat. It caused the jaw muscles and the whole facial muscles to work harder, which in turn shaped the teeth and the jawline and all facial structures. Because I wanted to get stronger teeth as well as chiseled and defined jawline, I gave it a try. I'm still ahead of my time. Nobody else is talking about this. Probably it will be popularized in the coming years, but remember who talked about it first. I cooked the tough cuts of meat such as brisket like a steak. It was extremely chewy, but over time it helped me to get that chiseled jawline without those lame techniques such as mewing. Moreover, I think it led me to have a strong stomach acid to break down and digest the meat better. Did I get any vitamin deficiency? No. It is believed that on a carnivore diet, the need for vitamin C is minimal. Nevertheless, I occasionally squeezed fresh lemons or limes on my steak because I love the tangy acidic taste and the carbohydrate is practically none. Moreover, I didn't stop eating raw onions and sometimes garlic since I believe they increase testosterone and boost the immune system. For the amounts that I ate, the carbohydrates are almost none. Did I get any negative side effects that I didn't get on keto? If you haven't, please watch my video on my experience with the keto diet, in which I have explained everything in detail. However, here I only want to discuss the negative side effects I got from carnivore but not keto. The only thing I can think of is constipation in the beginning, but I could resolve it by doing these 3 things: First of all, I added more fat and less lean protein. The second one was giving the digestive system more time to get adapted to go without fiber or even dairy. And the third one was just getting used to not going as often and accepting that it's fine, and even a positive thing. Now, what benefits did I get compared to keto? Before discussing the positive, I have to mention that vegetables are treated with pesticides, but when digested by animals, especially ruminants, their body does the job of getting rid of the toxins. One benefit for me was almost no gas. Other than that, all the positive effects of keto were amplified, such as faster fat loss. It is very difficult to overeat on meat and animal fats. More muscle, more healing from inflammation, even better athletic performance, strength and endurance, even better testosterone levels and libido, even more energy, both physical and mental, and less fatigue. Why did I quit carnivore after 3 months? It was working perfectly, the inflammation was gone, and I was back at exercise and lifting weights. Above all, I had reached my desired sub 10% body fat, and the best thing was that I had kept my muscles without exercise. My testosterone was high as well. So you might ask, why did you quit then? I switched back to keto because I missed dairy, nuts, and the desserts. I also missed the milk froth in my coffee. I started experimenting with keto foods and desserts, and since I was back at exercise, I didn't think it would lead to weight gain, and I was right. I even lost more weight after going back to keto and exercising. In 3 months, I went from 10% to 8% body fat. What happened and why I'm going back to carnivore? One thing happened that changed everything. On the last week of February 2025, one day while lifting dumbbells, my left shoulder injury flared up again. It was painful, both physically and mentally. It was so painful that it even stopped me from running and even doing leg and ab exercises for 3 weeks because the pain would radiate to my back. Why did the injury happen? Other than pushing myself too hard too quickly, there were 3 reasons. Alcohol. My previous job that I got fired from was so abusive that I used to drink to cope. Vaping, same as alcohol. And the third one is the high stress of the job and the constant threats, disrespects, and bullying. All culminated in my body becoming prime for inflammation. The story of losing my job is a whole different story, which I have explained in 2 videos, and there's a third one coming soon. In short, after losing my job, I was in a way relieved. But it takes some time for the body to reset. Moreover, the stress of losing a job was not helping either. A healthy, pain-free life is worth more than anything. So I made these 3 changes immediately. I quit alcohol completely and gave away all the alcoholic beverages that I had at home. I quit vaping and threw away the vape. I quit exercising and started doing some corrective movements. And lastly, I started meditation, mostly walking meditation in nature. The next step to completely resolve the inflammation is to go back to the carnivore diet. And to be honest, I'm no longer even intrigued by keto foods and desserts, such as keto pizza, keto ice cream, and chocolate. As soon as my current stash of nuts, vegetables, and dairy runs out, I'll jump ship back to carnivore. This time, I don't want to give anything away anymore. In terms of exercise, as of now, I'm back at running and doing ab and leg workouts, but no upper body workouts just yet. And finally, results are the name of the game. No matter what anyone says, if something makes total sense to me and feels right, I'll do it no matter what everyone else says. And if they bring a whole lot of studies that shows otherwise, I'm gonna still do it. I'll share my results with you in real time, truthfully and honestly. If you love your sugar and want to stick with it forever, that's your choice. But keep in mind, if I am left alone in a deserted island with no food, water, or a nice bed, I will survive. I can go for days without food or water or minimal sleep and still function properly because I have trained myself to be like that. If we need to climb a mountain to get food, I can do it just fine while being hungry, tired, and dehydrated. If you're watching this, especially if you're a man, I wish the same for you. If you cannot work out without your pre-workout sugar, what's the value in that? Workout, same as diet, is to get you more resilient, stronger, and healthier, physically and mentally, although aesthetics is a nice side effect. This is the message I am promoting. The carnivore diet is natural because humans thrived on animal-based foods long before agriculture. For millions of years, early hunter-gatherers relied on meat and fish, as plants were scarce and seasonal or hard to digest. Only with farming about 10,000 years ago did grains and legumes become staples, making the modern diet a recent shift from our ancestral way of eating. Not to mention, today's farming is far from natural, with genetic engineering, pesticides, insecticides, and soil depletion stripping plants of their original nutrient density. Thank you for watching until this point. Please like the video to support the channel, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for future videos. The next video will be the celebration of 1,000 subscribers, and in that I will get into why getting fit led me to get fired from my job. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below, and I'll see you again soon.